Hello and welcome back. I'm so excited because the day is finally here. We are finally going to do something with the parts that we have accumulated over the last couple of videos, even the hiccups that we've had and the new things we have. But before I do anything else related to the computer, let's talk about our new subscriber. Thanks, special shout out to Bill Doobie. Thank you for subscribing. That was only about 4 hours ago. I haven't made a video for a couple days, but thank you very much for checking out my videos. Also, if you can notice here, our special background presentation is brought to you by Lazy Fish Keeper. Check out his channel, link below. Give him some love on his channel if you like the fish tank experience, which I do. There's a lot going on in there. I'll be right back. Hang on just a second. 832 fishes in that tank. Yes, sir. Ma'am, sir. Anyway, just kidding. But thanks to Lazy Fish Keeper for giving me special permission to show some of his videos in the background. If I'm too boring or whatever I'm talking about is not that interesting, you should feel free to check his channel out, check out some fishes, and put some chill music on and relax. All right. So also a special shout out to Fantech Computer Case Company. As you know, before I made a special attachment to the piece that was missing from the parts that I bought when I bought the fan case, and that was the only thing. I ordered this, and 3 to 5 days later, this came in the mail. This is the piece that is the proper thing to go there to support that power supply. And we're going to go ahead and switch it out and put this on to make it fresh. This was $5, guys, with a little bit of shipping, and they got it here right away. They sent me a personalized email from my request for information about how to get this. It turns out they had it. It was just on a different case because it was compatible with this case and the other case. They said, hey, here's the link. Check it out. Went right to the link. There it is. Ordered it. $10. 3 days later, here it is. So we are going to use that because I want this to be as nice as I can get, even for $10. It's still worth it because $40 for the case, $50 total for all those parts. We've already seen this case in the other video. It's beautiful. And it's way more of a case than perhaps even this little motherboard deserves. As I mentioned before, this is a DDR3 system. It's an AMD Phenom 2, which in its day was the top of the line for a few moments. I need a cameraman. If anybody wants to come over and be my cameraman, please feel free to send me a message. But yeah, we're going to go ahead. And the thing about it is this is more for learning. And if I'm helping you learn anything to help you build your own computer system and give you the opportunity or even the motivation to try, and even if you fail, you failed, but you can try and try again and you will succeed. This is not rocket science. It's once you know what you're doing and you've made a couple of miscalculations and plugged a couple things where they should go and they should. There's only a couple things that really can be plugged into the wrong place. So that's not even a big deal. Most everything has its own very unique plug. And except for the power switches and the reset button and the indicator lights on the front that come in 5 or 6 little buttons, it's really pretty easy to plug everything into the right spot. And basically you'll know if you have those wrong is if you plug the power button in the wrong way, it doesn't come on when you push the button. We'll talk about that in a little bit, though. Let's see. Make sure there's some supplies there. Let's go ahead and address one issue real quick. I got a message on my last video from Lazy Fish Keeper. He asked me, he said, do you need that many fans? And before I showed you that I had 4 fans here. And, you know, of course, there's the fan on the power supply. And I don't know if I mentioned that before, but when I installed the power supply, I very specifically made sure that the fan for the power supply that is exhaust blew out the bottom because this case has its own portal for that. And it even has a filter which can be cleaned, but it goes right in. No, don't let me make this look too easy. Okay. I will put this in a few minutes because we are going to switch this plate out, but I intentionally left a little lip on here, so that's kind of blocking the filter, but now I know that. So now I've learned something that I could have modified that a little bit, could have took a little more material off the bottom of that plate that I made. But, you know, I'm very proud of that plate. I'm going to keep it hanging on the wall. It's going to be part of a collage of things that I have and didn't need or do or did, but I did that thing. And you should keep the mementos of the things that you like and in your progress, even your mistakes. If you break something, if something doesn't work, I mean, wouldn't that look really cool on the shelf? Even if this doesn't, we don't know that this works. I hope it works. But even if it doesn't, I'm gonna hang it up behind me, and you're gonna see it. And it's like, whoa, that's cool, Robert. What is that? It's like, oh, it's just a video card, top of the line, 15 years ago. But what I'm saying is, don't be afraid to make mistakes in the PC building process. And that's kind of the point where we're using the lesser expensive things that we could find online from individuals. And I'm looking at my light. I don't know if I'm trying to adjust my light a little bit to kill the shadows. I'm trying to put together a more presentable desk basin area. That's to come in the future for some other videos. I'd like to get the camera in front of me instead of to my side. Lots of little things, lots of videos and people on YouTube show you how to do it right. But right now we're just trying to have some fun, so I'm not really too far into it. I think I do have more light coming from over there. And I did that trying to give you some, but let's turn that down a little bit. Ha! Movie magic. Look, the color's coming back. That's awesome. It's not right there. No glare. Okay, cool. So now, back to the question. Lazy Fish Keeper said, do you really need that many fans? Yes, you do need that many fans, especially if you have them. The opportunity was in the other case that I took apart to have those fans. I pulled them all out, and since I have them, there's also another fan that goes on the CPU. So we got CPU fan, the power supply fan, the 4 fans that I pulled out of the other case. The reason that you need the fans is not so much the quantity of the fans, but you need the airflow. You absolutely have to have the airflow. A typical CPU in modern motherboards, not necessarily this one. For instance, it has somewhat of a smaller heat sink and a smaller fan. So I'm not sure what the wattage rating on this is, but they do rate 65 to 95 watts on a lot of different processors. That's a very vague statement, but 95 watts is 95 watts. It's just like a light bulb that we used to have, the incandescent before LEDs existed. They put out a lot of heat. So the importance of the fans is airflow. And just as important as having enough fans, at least, not necessarily all of the fans that you can stick in there, but the importance of having them benefit what you're trying to accomplish with controlling the heat on your system. So for instance, on the CPU fan, obviously this is a exhaust fan. It pulls heat away from the aluminum heat sinks here because this is touching the processor, and it pulls that heat away, keeps these cooler, and takes heat out of the processor through the fans. That disperses, cools these off, so that puts that exhaust inside the case. So if you've got the hot air coming off the motherboard straight inside the case, something that you need to consider is, where's it going to go once it comes off the CPU, which would be about right here. Okay, so obviously it's going to come out this way, and on this particular case, we've got, we got things falling off, Scotty. What's happening here? No worries, it was designed that way, I think. Oh, let me see if Houston, we have a problem. Hello, special visitor. Come on in. We're on live video right now. You want to participate? Wow, just say hi. Everybody say, uh-oh. I've got pieces falling off the case.
Yeah, at least you've got most pieces for the case.
Come down here. Everybody, this is my son, young Robert, but he's not really that young. So here's it. This is my favorite computer cyber hacker, specialist, security agent. We'll talk a bit more about that later. Maybe someday he'll sit in with us. Oh, wait. Sorry. Shh. That's secret. Don't tell anybody. So all 63 of my viewers don't. That was top secret. Erase that from the video. Thank you. We'll edit that out later. I know it's live. Don't. Anyway. So, everything all right?
Yeah.
All right, we'll come back and join us and watch the video later if you get a chance.
Yeah.
We'll be around. I'm trying to figure out what I pulled out of that. Oh, there's a thumb screw. There is a thumb screw. All right, so for whatever reason, so this is a. I'm sorry, I'm bouncing all over the place. We got things going on, but this little plate here is kind of a sliding plate. It kind of hides the cable. It's not the thing that makes the most sense to me, but I did have this extra thumb screw, and I wasn't sure where it went, but it holds that on. So let's do that assembly real quick. I'm gonna put that back where we found it. Put this thumb screw in there. And it's actually adjustable to make that firm or tight. So I'm gonna go ahead and snug these other three up. And that's one less thing I have to worry about. Okay, so back to fans. Exhaust hot air from the CPU fan. The very best thing to do with that is send it to the back of the case. Okay, so one fan on the back on almost every case that or every PC I've ever built, I've always put a fan that exhausts hot air out the back. And obviously we don't set this right up next to a wall. We want that flow to be even. And because of the principle of hot air rises, it's also good to have airflow going up, straight up the top. And in this particular case, it's got a huge fan base for multiple fans and or a liquid cooling system and a radiator, which basically a radiator would take up the whole space and fans would be attached to it underneath, pushing through the radiator, cooling the fluids off and sending the fluids back down into the system. That's a complicated system. I've never built a water cooling system. I may do that someday, but they're somewhat problematic. Needless to say, this case or most cases have some kind of allowance for either 120 millimeter fans or 140. You see the offsets for the screws here are different sizes. So these two would be a 120 millimeter fan, and then a little bit bigger would be the 140. Irregardless, I can put 3 big fans or 3 medium fans up here, and they can all blow air out the top, which is very helpful. Also comes with this screen you can take off and wash it if it gets dusty and throw that in the sink and rinse it off with things. So the perfect idea is have an exhaust out the back or out the top. But then if you have fans in the front, that is to draw air in. So it's very kind of important that you know which directions your fans blow. Okay. So here I've got a sticker on the back of this one, and I've got a printed another sticker here on the front. And honestly, to tell you the truth, I've not plugged these in to see which way they spin, but I know by experience in the past where this is the fan itself on this side, and this is the motor side with the cord and whatnot that's underneath the fan, and the fan is put over the top of the motor, there's a gap on the back side. So I'm assuming that the airflow blows this away as to not blow inside the motor, the dust and whatnot. So I'm hoping that this is intake and this is the withdrawal. And I'm pretty certain that's the case. But once we plug it in, we'll know right away. We can switch it around, no problem. But in Lazy Fish's question, do we need that many fans? I've got 4 here. I could use probably 2 or 3 more. And in the ballpark of it, I plan on putting 3 in the front to draw as much fresh, clean, cool air in the front as I can, and then take away the heat that's being generated by the CPU out the back or out the top. So 1 fan in the back, 1 fan in the top, and then maybe 3 in the back, which that means I'm 1 short. The cool thing about these builds is you can always change out fans. I can put 2 fans in the front for now, and I can put 1 in the top and 1 in the back, which would be fine. Or I can put 3 in the front, 1 in the back, 3 on the top. That's basically, that's FanTech case is a PHAN is a ploy on fans. And so this is one of the better air cooling fan cases made on the market, as according to Gamers Nexus, which has an amazing channel. He's so super smart. I'll never be on his level, nor would I try to be, but I do appreciate the videos he puts out because I learn a lot from him. I don't have the link, but if you look it up, and most people probably have heard of it. So let's build. Let's build. Lazy, I hope that answered your question. First thing I want to do today is explain a couple things. First of all, the case, we're not dealing with anything super specific static related. I have hardwood floors. I don't have carpet. There are an occasion where you'd want to ground all your tools to a case and not have arc. On higher build systems, there's a proper way to do that. I'm not terribly concerned with this one. I do have a rubber matting on the table. This is a jazzercise or playpen or just basic foam with the slots in it. And I've cut it out to fit the table. And it's kind of expensive because it's so popular, but it's floor mat for gymnastics. And I put it on top of the desk. I have it on all my workbenches, but it's also a good insulator from any kind of static clean or whatnot. So I'm not terribly concerned about using power tools, magnetic tools, that kind of thing. I don't have anything super expensive here either, as far as that would be damaged from static. If you're dealing with thousands of dollars worth of equipment, you need to take all the precautions you can. And at some point, maybe we'll discuss that. But my hopes for this is that once it's built, I will take things away and add things to it and slowly bring it up to a more pristine gaming build that would be on par with what you would expect to want, or what you'd want to get up to date to play the latest games. But for now, this is just an exercise in showing you that it's not as hard as you would think it would be. And you can save a lot of money by doing it yourself and looking for opportunities to find the parts that you need via online or social media or public. So that being said, let's do something. I'm going to take my, if I had a sponsor and I got an email from them and they said, if you'll mention our name out loud and put our hat on and our t-shirt and our overalls and our bib and it would probably be something like one of these. Wink, wink. Irregardless, I love these products. So I've got two little screws. I'm going to do those manually because I don't want to get too crazy, because these are the two that I painted. And let me move you a little closer. I'm going to give you the point of view of build camera while I'm still talking to you. And last time I missed somebody in the live chat, but if you're in the live chat, put a message in there, copy and paste it over and over again, and hopefully I'll look over and see that it's scrolling. So, all right, so I've got my two little screws here. The only thing that's the new guard, when I ordered it, it didn't have screws with it. There was the screws in the picture, but they weren't the same picture as this. They were in a different, but it didn't allow me to add them to the cart. But any screw, like I said, there's so many of the same kind of screws on a case that will fit. On these particular small screws that fit this one, I went ahead and painted them to be black because they were not black. So I'm going to go here, pull those two screws out, and that's it. That's the neatest part of this case build for the removable power supplies, because you can manage that power supply with all the cables and then just slide it in and have it ready to go. If you were to mount it with all these cables, so many cables, it's sometimes hard to work around all of this. And don't be intimidated by all these cables. They're just there. You're not even going to use most of them, not even on this build. You might use 4 of them. So it's nothing to be scared or intimidated about, but that is one of the advantages of this. You can pull this completely out, use a cable at a time, then slide it all in there, lock it down. But we're not going to do that today. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the standard case screws, which I may try to find some of these in black too for future reference. Okay, and let's take a moment to compare. Here's the one I built, the one that Robert built, and here's the one that actually comes with this. It was a little bit of size. I had a little extra material in this. I didn't want to take it away until I knew that it would fit, and even still, I could cut it down a little bit and make it a little bit smaller. But it served a purpose, and I'm proud of myself for doing this, and you should be too. Anything, even putting a computer together, just putting one screw in a computer, you should be totally proud of yourself. All right, so now we just got to match up the screws to our power supply, and the orientation of those will reveal itself, and there's only one way that it can go. So obviously you saw that I flipped that over a few times. I'm not particularly looking at the instructions. I do notice that that is a extruded bevel for that screw hole right there. I don't know if you can see that where you're at. I'm not sure if my screws are long enough, but let's try that. One little inconsistency after another. And as a matter of fact, the screws I selected do not even fit. And they're going to be too short, even if they did fit. Maybe not. That is a smaller than expected screw hole. So now let me do just a slight bit of experimentation. Okay, from the instruction pictures I had earlier, I'm most certain that this goes here, and it kind of insets just a little bit. There's also its own little screw rivet cut out for that, so it fits there perfectly, and that's where it lines up with my power supply. Unfortunately, these screw holes are smaller than what I expected, because they don't even fit these small screws that I made that actually do screw into the case, and I hope I didn't damage those threads or not. But it appears that I may have to order those screws. I may have to send them another email, which is no big deal. You know why? Because we've got a backup plan. I'm just going to build it. All right. So thank you for bearing with me. Let's go back to mine. Here we go. I ain't afraid. Screwdriver. I'm not going to make you wait. I know you got excited when you saw the title, and it's just not fair. And I'm excited. I want to do this. I've had a few days at work, and I haven't been able to get back to you guys, and I want to build. I want to build. All right. This is super easy. Just going to put it back. It works. We knew it worked, so pretty happy with that. There's those, and I've just put them in there loosely because I want to make sure everything lines up. Then we'll go back to my special little black screw. There's no wrong way to do this, guys. If it works for you, if you have to be creative and go around the corners and modify and shape and punch and pull and kick and scream and yell, whatever it takes, there's no wrong way to learn how to do something new. And it's possible to get this all put together and it won't work. But that's okay, because it's a troubleshooting process that you can put it back together. Okay, so we knew that worked. We've got that. We'll stand by on the other thing. I'll send them a little message and see if I can get a link to the screws themselves. But that's the power supply. So basically that's mounted. And I'm going to go ahead and leave it mounted because I can manage the cables in this, because like I said, we're not using that many cables. But the next thing is not even to do with the case. Let's take a look at the motherboard. Well, let me say, we can do this. So this is called an I/O shield, and it's just a basically an outlet plug cover for your motherboard, and it's a vanity cover, and it also takes up the space where it wouldn't allow dust to get in, and it fits over the things that are on your motherboard and kind of makes room for them. It makes it all pretty, you know. So this can be installed now. So we know this is the orientation. We'll go ahead and take it And in the space in the back of the PC case, it fits perfect from the inside. So we go inside, line it up, and it's got a little bit of a lip, and it just snaps in. So this just like Legos. And once that's snapped in, that's the entire application of the I/O plate right there. The motherboard will butt up to that and screw into the plate, the backing board of it, and it'll fit there just perfect. So it's actually got little spring tensioners on there. So now, let's get back here. Obviously, the little bar, we showed that before. Let me just do it again here. The bar is the tensioner that holds the CPU in place. And basically, have a bunch of little copper pins. Got to be super careful with this. And if you remember from before, the arrow orientation is down here on the bottom left. It's down here on the bottom left. And if you have to do anything more than drop it in and it doesn't go flush, then something's not right. You got to be super careful about that. But here, once it's set in and it's not moving and it's flush like it should be, but just a little bit of pressure, maybe like 3 or 4 cotton balls worth of pressure. And then I'm going to put the arm down so that it grabs each and every one of those pins, locks them into place. Okay. And that's that. That's as easy as that is. So now we want to add the cooler because that needs to be there. And under most circumstances, when I remove these, I would remove all this and put brand new, fresh thermal paste on there. But this thermal paste is on here, except for the very middle, it's tacky and it's clean and it's a established space of thermal paste for that. And thermal paste is super important. Don't put your cooler on your CPU without the thermal paste, because it allows that heat transfer to be so much better. But as I've pulled this off of here and cleaned up the CPU, some of the thermal paste is missing. So I'm going to add a little bit, but I'm pretty happy with what's here, minus a crumb or two, which looks just to be fuzz. And I'm going to add just a little bit more. And pardon me while I go over here. Sorry, my big head is in the way. All right, so here's another great idea. I've got this whole bucket of extra parts, and it's really handy to have. But I keep a couple extra things in here. Here's some thermal paste. Here's some more thermal paste. And I'm sure I have some more somewhere else, but that's just one set of it there. This stuff is super, super messy. Don't get this on your mom's couch. Just saying. All right, so now and this just doesn't take a lot. So keep in mind that it's just a little syringe. And because there's a little bit on there, I'm going to concentrate most of it in the center. And I'm going to do a little bit of swirling around. And there's a pretty good clump right there in the middle. You don't want to get too crazy. There's a good coating of that on the cooler itself. Put the cap back on. There's a little bit of residual there. And I'm going to lay it over there. I'll clean it up here in a little bit. And in lieu of a plastic spatula or something to move that around, I've got a toothbrush, which both ends of this work for a lot of things. But I'm just going to try to even this up fairly well. You know, just give it a little bit of surface area. And you may ask yourself, Robert, now doesn't look like you're really covering that whole thing. Well, you would be surprised. You don't have to go all the way out to the end. Some people just completely coat them and fill them up. But I've taken the little bit of material I put in the middle, and I'm going to spread it out. You can move it out there. I mean, it's not going to hurt it, but I want to try to keep this clean. And if I have an even spread of cake batter, icing, whatever you want to call it, on the CPU, as soon as I put that fan cover, the CPU cooler on there, it will instantly press down and move that material around, especially when it starts to get warmed up, and it will definitely spread out. But this is a perfectly flat surface going on a perfectly flat surface with that material in between. And when we put this on, it will, in fact, spread it out, make it perfectly level, even. If this was a brand new build, brand new parts, expensive parts, most of the time the coolers already have a pre-amount of paste on them. You can use that, or you can use your own. It depends on if it comes with it or not, but you always go with your manufacturer's recommendations. Now this is kind of an old school style of CPU cooler, and it's got a little bracket here. It's got two little hooks on it. So these little hooks, basically one floats and one of them is solid. And the idea is, and now I remember that the tensioner was down here on this side. There's only two ways for it to go, which is, here's the hold down clips on that are on either side. So you got this hold down and this hold down. And I'm pretty sure the tensioner was on this bottom side of the CPU cooler, CPU itself, because the cable here is for the fan power, and here, right here, really close to the CPU. And if you got there with a microphone, I don't know what I'm saying. If you got there with a microscope or a magnifying glass, you would see that says CPU fan. It actually is like, you know what? Come with me. Come with me. Hey, please. I haven't tried this before, but hey, I'm pretty happy with my camera. Oh, CPU fan. Yeah, Daddy. I don't know about my freehand exercise here, but obviously you can see that. The cool thing about most motherboards, is that they do have a lot of labels on there for your convenience. And even if you go online and look up the manufacturer's specifications on the board, it should have a diagram of where everything is. So don't be afraid to do that. Basically look up the serial number, model make, and it'll show you all that. So on this one here, all I'm going to do is hook this one on the back side. And then while this little arm is down, the front one kind of floats. But when I pull it over, it's going to put tension on it and lock it down. So all I got to do is make sure that I've got the back plate hooked over the little yellow tab. And then I start to slowly line up the heat sink, and then make sure that the front, all right, I'm laying down on the paste now, which it's okay if it spills over. Thermal paste for your CPU is non-conductive. It's not going to hurt anything. Pardon me just a moment here. So I need to flex that out a bit. So there we go. Now that I've got that to lay over the top right here, that's where that needs to be. And on the back side, it's the same thing. And now you see it's still moving around. So this armature right here will put tension and pull up on that clamp. And I'm just gonna pull it over, and it's slowly getting tighter and 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 tighter till it explodes. No, it doesn't. It just lays over like that. Now you'll notice there's a little bit of flex, but it's solid. It is on there good. That's how it's designed. And like I mentioned before, we're going to do these things first before we put it in the board, because it's easier to get out here while we're still at it. Okay, so next thing we're going to hear is the CPU fan power. And on most of these plugs, like I said, it's really hard to mess this up. There's a little horseshoe style gap. And on here, there's also a plastic tab that won't let you put this on backwards. Now, if you're into electronics or anything, you know that DC current only runs one way. So DC supplied power to a DC supplied component needs to be in that direction. So it is important for these to plug in the right direction. So they put that little space on the side of this plug so that you can only plug it in to its source the right way. You can't really do it wrong, because that slot right here fits on there. Let's come back in. Come on down. You're the next contestant on. All right. See here, I'm talking about this little slot in the back. Sorry, I'm not a hand model. I'm not paying. Okay, right here. And then on the plug, you've got that same slot that'll only allow you to plug it in the right place. And this is pretty simple. Just make sure that you're not forcing it down, because you have those plugs. I'm sorry, the prongs of that plug, and you've got to get them in all 4 of those holes. So if you just gently push it down, sooner or later you're going to find, oh, and see right here, I'm off, and so it's just not going anywhere from there. So I'm going to pick this up, move it over one, and once you're on them, it just goes down like it should. And then you press down, voila, that's it. The CPU now has power from the motherboard when the motherboard's plugged in. It's that simple. Anybody tells you it's more difficult than that, it's not. I just showed you. So right now, 95% of our motherboard is connected. We've got the RAM, which is, if you're not familiar with RAM, basically it helps the CPU do all the things at the same time that the CPU can do, but it takes the workload off. It's like honeybee workers versus the queen. Queen is organized and making everything happen, and all the honeybees are actually doing the work and allowing the processes to be done intertwined, to be working together at the same time so that more things can be done in a shorter time. So there's more about RAM and that kind of stuff here. So there's our motherboard. Because this is an old motherboard, I definitely recommend that you check the battery or just replace it. It's the most common little button cell battery. There's a number on it, and this one happens to be a 2032, which is the most common button cell. Your key fob for your car has one of these in it. Some flashlights and all kind of things have that same button cell. And if you're trying to build an old system and it doesn't post or doesn't work, make sure that battery's got power, or just replace it. They're 30 cents a piece if you buy them 10 at a time, or $1 or something. But so, okay. So now, because we have a new case for this motherboard, we need to consider how it attaches to the case. If you can see here that the typical screw hole on this motherboard has a little daisy looking solder around it right here. And that solder touches the screw. So everything green shouldn't be connected. It shouldn't be conductive. Pardon me, let me use the right terminology. But the solder points are. They transfer electricity. And in the sense that this is where a mounting screw goes, it allows that to be the ground of the motherboard. So that solder is attached to everything that is the ground, and that handles electricity and static and things, and keeps well grounded, just like anything else, your house or your car. It all has to have a proper ground. So on the back, that is a common ground for the entire board. So on that being said, I like to use as many of the holes as allowed to ground it and to support it. And on this particular board, there's 1, 2, 3 on the top, 1, 2, 3 on the middle, and 1, 2, 3 on the bottom. This one's kind of offset. So there's 9 screw holes on this motherboard. And for solid build, I like to use them all. Now, the difference is when you're using your motherboard on a new case, if you look, come with me again, one more time. If you look, this motherboard has 1, 2, 3 across the top, 1, 2, 3 across the middle, but has none across this bottom, but these are a little bit further down. All right. These are called standoffs. Okay. And the standoffs pull the board away, give it a little bit of breathing room from the case itself, but they're also what you screw screws into to mount the motherboard to it. Now, here's a little trivia for you. You say, Robert, why are these screws here so low down and it's missing the 3 that would fit for this board? Well, bigger motherboard. This case can adapt to multiple motherboards, okay? And it can allow for a smaller motherboard, which can be even that small, this medium-sized motherboard, or a tall-sized motherboard. The last motherboard that was put in here, and let's take a look at that, was a full-size motherboard. So this one is a much smaller one, and it lines up, but it doesn't have screw holes. It doesn't have the standoffs in these spots here on the bottom. And as a matter of fact, so I'm just kind of eyeballing it now. It appears that this doesn't have 9 for this size of motherboard, which is perfectly okay. I'm gonna go ahead and rest this in here. Let's do this because I'm doing this complicated. Anytime you're building something, make it easy. Let's let gravity help us. All right. Let's see if this works.